If you recall, yesterday, John McCain was in the news calling for a very special and distinguished ambassador to be sent to deal with the situation in Israel. In fact, if you didn't see that, why don't we go to that right now?
I'd find someone even as high-ranking, frankly, as former President Bill Clinton to go and be the negotiator. I know he'd hate me for saying that, but we need a person of enormous prestige and influence to have these parties sit down together as an honest broker. But we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, so calling for Bill Clinton, I think that was kind of nice. I mean, it's obviously across the aisle. We joked at the time that I think it's funny that to get a distinguished president, he has to go back beyond George W. Bush. So that's kind of interesting. And so
can you imagine if it was George W. Bush? That would be political suicide for John McCain.
Or
anyone who suggests that.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't go over well. But anyway, we find out today that he was actually partially right. Clinton is going to be going to the Middle East, only not Bill. It's going to be Clinton. We have a video. This is Ben Rhodes talking about that mission. So why don't we throw to that?
She'll meet with regional leaders, beginning with our Israeli partners, to consult on the situation in Gaza, to support a de-escalation of the violence and a durable outcome that ends the rocket attacks on Israeli cities and restores a broader calm in the region.
I'm fascinated by that statement, the wording and the framing of that statement. First of all, sending Hilary Clinton, Secretary of State, to Israel to, try to compromise some sort of ceasefire. I know that the president of Egypt is doing the same thing right now. So I should note that as this is being taped, we have minimal information as to what will happen with the ceasefire. We keep hearing information about how, Hamas has agreed to something. The Israelis and the Egyptians have not agreed.
There was a separate UN
There was a UN ceasefire that the U.S. unfortunately blocked for reasons that I do not understand at the moment. So who knows how this is going to play out as the day progresses. But I will say that the way his phrasing went in that video made me uncomfortable because he focused solely on stopping the airstrikes in Israel. But Israel needs to also stop the airstrikes in the Gaza Strip. And I think that the way that the media has framed this has been kind of destructive, and it hasn't been a fair and balanced way of framing how this situation has gone down. Now, keep in mind that last week, the Israelis are the ones who broke the ceasefire, and they did an airstrike to take out a leader of Hamas.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of escalated into what we see today. And the way that he phrased that makes me uncomfortable because it isn't just one side attacking the other. It's both sides attacking one another, and we need to have an honest conversation about that as opposed to framing it as, oh, well, we need to get the Palestinians to stop doing airstrikes in Israel.
Yeah, or at least rocket attacks.
Right.
Yeah, I think anybody watching this program is probably not like the average CNN viewer. Like, I think they understand that the way that these conflicts, and they happen so often, are portrayed in the media.
Right.
And both the politicians and the media have a very clear and outspoken bias in regard to one side. And so, and also the problem that goes along with that is that if you even present things in just a neutral, you talk about attacks on both sides, that is in itself seen as being biased towards the Palestinians, I think.
Which it's
and that
not.
makes it hard to talk about this issue.
It does make it hard to talk about this issue, but I just want to be absolutely clear about something. I think that the safety and security of both parties is extremely important, right? So if Israel wants to know that they are living in a secure country, the one thing that they have to do is keep in mind that attacking another country is not going to increase the security in your own country. So just to give you, something that I think can draw parallels to that, the U.S. and the drone strikes, right? So we're constantly talking about how we want to take out the terrorists, okay? We want to end terrorism, but you can't beat terrorism by being terrorists yourself. So doing drone strikes that kill, or signature strikes, I should be 100% specific, doing signature strikes that kill innocent civilians only creates this hostility toward the United States. And I think a similar thing can be said of the Israelis. If you are attacking a different population of people, there is going to be hostility toward the Israelis, not just from the Palestinians, but by other Arab countries as well. And I want security and safety in both regions, in both not regions, but both countries. And in order to do that, you have to kind of have an honest conversation about what's going on and stop framing it in a way as, okay, well, the Palestinians are attacking the Israelis, and that's the way it is.
Yeah. Look, I said yesterday on the show that I think that it's going to be difficult. Like, I don't doubt that there will be some sort of temporary ceasefire in the next day or two. I don't know if Hilary Clinton will be instrumental in getting that formed, but the stuff that's coming out of Egypt, it implies that some sort of ceasefire is probably going to occur. Because Hamas, how long can they last like this? They have no significant offensive capabilities. And tied in with that, the fact that with Iron Dome now, as I said yesterday, one of the few somewhat effective weapons that the Palestinians have, these rocket attacks, which are, even in the best of times, incredibly unreliable and can occasionally kill civilians. That's all they're good for. They're not going to take out Israeli military. Even that is no longer as effective because Iron Dome can block much of that. And we're not living in the 60s and 70s. Israel does not feel nearly as threatened by its neighbors in the region as it did back then.
Right.
And so if the internal enemies aren't as threatening, the external enemies aren't as threatening, we shouldn't be surprised that they're more willing to engage in offensive actions that have less of a long-term or even short-term cost for them.
Right.
Now, we do have one more, this is a written statement by Ben Rhodes about the mission that Hillary Clinton is going to be engaging in. So I want to cover that so you get a little bit better of an idea of what she's going there to accomplish. And this statement says, Secretary Clinton will emphasize the United States' interest in a peaceful outcome that protects and enhances Israel's security and regional stability, an outcome that can lead to improved conditions for the civilian residents of Gaza, and that can reopen the path to fulfill the aspirations of Palestinians and Israelis for two states living side by side in peace and security. And of course, she will continue to express our concern about the loss of civilian life on both sides. Could be a coincidence, but the first thing that's focused on there is Israel's security.
I know.
The afterthoughts to civilian deaths. And look, if we really want them to be two states, they've been trying to do that in the UN, as Cenk has alluded to. They've been trying to become a state there, and no traction whatsoever.
I mean, their bid for statehood last year was completely blocked, rejected by the United States. That causes hostility toward the United States. It causes hostility toward Israel, and it's not the way to go. We need to have an honest and open conversation about this.
Yeah.
And that's the only way that we can, end the violence that's happening in that region. But unfortunately, we're not having an open and honest discussion about this. When we talk about civilian deaths, as it stands right now, 130 people, Palestinians, have died as a result of this conflict over the last week, 31 of which are innocent children. And so that's where we need to kind of focus, okay? We need to stop pretending as if this is an attack on one side and the other side is completely innocent. That's not the right way to frame this. The right way is to talk about it honestly so we can actually come to a real solution.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that a lot of people will say that, well, it's not really the same, the attacks going one side or the other. The Palestinians are firing off these rockets in a fairly random pattern. And whether or not they intend to kill civilians, it's clear that oftentimes it does kill civilians. And so that's very different than what Israel's doing. That's what they'll say. But the thing is, this is not the first time there's been hostility between the two sides. And every time it happens, we see these large numbers on the Palestinian sides of casualties, many of which are civilians. And so after gathering enough data for multiple rounds of these hostilities, we have to understand that just like the random Palestinian rockets kill civilians, these targeted, much more intelligent Israeli strikes also kill civilians. The outcome is the same, so we should treat them roughly the same, I think.